Hello everyone and welcome back. We're just going to get straight into learning how to construct and sew a racer jacket from scratch. I'll be sharing the full process from start to finish and try my best to keep it simple enough so that your sewing process goes well. With that being said, go grab some papers, markers or pens, measuring tape, and your favorite woven bodice pattern block and meet me in the next section of this video. Bye! I decided to use a light-weighted denim fabric, so I will prepare that first before moving on to cutting out the pieces. When pinning the center back bodice and center front, make sure that it lays flat on the fold line. I made sure to pin at the top and bottom first, then I pinned it in the middle while slightly creating a dart and smoothing out the pattern so that it lays flat all around. As you can see here, everything is flat, and now we use a ruler to help cut out my seam allowances, about a 1/4 inch. You can obviously change that amount to fit your preferences. I like to keep it consistent throughout the pattern too, so pretty much every piece had a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I like to start by sewing the hardest part first, so I'm going to pin the second and third front bodice panels together along the curvy line. My advice is to maneuver the fabric around so that everything lines up as it should. As you can see, at the curviest point, the fabric bunches up. However, it lays flat exactly within my seam allowance. When it's time to sew that seam, I recommend taking your time so that the sewing process is much easier while sewing along that curve. I know some of you hate ironing your seams, but it's necessary. So please iron all of your seams when you finish sewing them on the other side so we can top stitch it just fine. If you iron it, you shouldn't have a problem top stitching it as the seams will stay in place, but I still like to add pins to help reinforce it. And just like that, I sew along the seam on the right side of the bodice without back stitching. Next, take the top panel for the front bodice and attach it to the previous panel. Sew and iron like usual because our zippers will need a nice foundation to lie on. I measured my zippers again and aligned it within the marks I made on the pattern. Then I used 2 rectangular pieces to stabilize the zipper on the other side. I'm just going to sew the exact same rectangle I created on the actual pattern piece. To be more precise, use a marker to draw it if you need a visual guide. Sew all around the rectangle. Then cut a hole along the center line. Towards the bottom, cut triangles. This next step takes a bit more time as you need to flip the rectangle towards the inside of the jacket. An iron helps greatly during this step as well as cutting out the corners too. Keep folding and ironing the fabric until you get an idea of what the opening should look like, but do not sew yet. Take your zipper and lay one side of it down on top of the bottom lining piece. The zipper pulls need to be face down and the teeth slightly over the main fabric. Then just sew it with a zipper foot. For this next part, it helps to close the zipper and place it behind the front panel, and stitch the sides or tail ends first so that we don't have any difficulty sewing the other side of the zipper. Now you can attach the bodices together at the side and sew. stitch along the front bodice, about 1/8 away from the side seam. Pin the bottom cuff to the bodices. Make sure that the right sides are facing each other and then sew. Take one side of your zipper and attach it to the front bodice along the center. The zipper teeth need to be facing the jacket and not the edge. Just for reminders, make sure you have a zipper that reaches the end of the bottom cuff so that your jacket can fully be closed. You can top stitch along the center front. However, in my tutorial, I did not. The bottom hem needs to be folded inwards, so iron the seam allowance and then attach it to the wrong side of the jacket. Sew about 1/8 away from the edge. You can now pin the shoulders together and then sew. Top stitch the shoulder seam along the back bodice. The jacket is now halfway completed. At this point, you can do a quick check to see how everything fits. Pin the two collar panels together and then sew along the top. Make sure that you leave a gap that equals the seam allowance you chose for the collar. When I flipped it inside out, I ironed one side and left the other untouched so that I can pin it along the neckline. I have the right sides facing each other while pinning. Next, fold the collar inwards so that the seam is covered and then sew along the neckline about 1/8 away from the edge. When you are finished, you can top stitch the rest of the collar. Sew the shorter collar panel together like so, then flip it inside out. I recommend practicing how to install snap buttons on your fabric before applying it to the jacket collar. This is just an extra step I like to take. Pierce a hole in the intended position you have marked on your pattern for the snap buttons and then apply. You will do the same for the other buttons. I used 2 so that I had an option on how tight the collar can be adjusted. When you are finished, you can attach the shorter collar panel to the jacket collar, right sides facing each other. Then flip it over and sew along the folded part. I use a thick zigzag stitch based on my own preference. Again, leave a gap that equals the seam allowance for attaching the cuff to the sleeve, then flip it inside out. Lay the sleeve panel right sides facing you and then attach the cuff to the bottom of the sleeve. Fold the sleeve in half and sew along the side seam. Lastly, you can attach your embroidered patch to the sleeve of your choice. And that's it for this jacket tutorial. If you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment or send me a message. Bye!